Hello and good morning, everybody. It's my pleasure and honor to be the keynote speaker today. It's really inspiring to experience this kind of energy. The passion and dynamism of all the participants and the organizers is phenomenal, especially in such difficult times. So thank you very much for that. I'm going to start actually with a quote that I find personally very, very inspiring. It's a quote by Charles Darwin. And it goes like this: it is not the strongest of the species that survive, not the most intelligent, but the ones that are most responsive to change. And that really is today what I'm going to talk about. If we come on the next slide, our topic today, like you've explained already, is disruption. But what really is disruption? To me, it's, even when I read the definitions, it's almost like it's like an external force which is going to come and shake up your status quo. And what better time than today to have this conversation, honestly. Because, next slide please. Because we are amidst one of the biggest disruptions that we've known, and which is COVID-19. Can I have the next slide? Yes. So it's like globally a thing that was completely unexpected and has disrupted everything that we know about how we work, how we have relationships, everything almost. If we go to the next slide, there are a couple of points I just wanted to make on what COVID-19 is really going to do and how is it, what it's going to mean to us really. The first place where it's going to impact us is relationships. You can click, thank you. And why relationships? Because either we are all too much together or we are too far apart. And both these can impact relationships in a big way. The other thing that's going to impact is our almost obsessive behavior towards safety and health. You can click next, please. I think it's there's a bit of lag on the this thing, but I think you can just click all. It might be easier that way. The safety, health, and hygiene is the second area, which I think is very, very, in amidst of a big change that is going to happen. The last bit is also the fact that ways of working are going to change dramatically. We are already experiencing it. This is actually my first ever address to a completely unknown audience over, a virtual medium. So it's changing. Things are changing. The same thing 3 years back would have been almost impossible in our minds, but that's changing big time. I think you can just click the whole slide, please. And finally, there is also interesting to see that there are many things that we are doing for the first time. A lot of us, and I don't just mean in the context of work, I also mean in the context of personal life. A lot of us are discovering passions we never knew we had. A lot of us are doing chores, doing things which we never thought we could. So it's a lot of first times happening, and that's very interesting and refreshing because it's almost like a reboot for humanity. We are seeing the best and the worst of humanity in this period. So it's quite interesting. Moving forward,
Next.
I'm going to wait for the slide to come. I think it takes a while because there is a lag on the virtual system, but that's fine. No problem. So it is what I was about to say. Is it's a completely new world that we are entering. It's a world which is full of things we've not known. We are treading new territory, and that's going to be the best disruption one can experience today. I hope the cause was better, but well. It is what it is, and we have to rise to the occasion. Then let's try and move. I'm going to move ahead. Is to look at 3 big things that this COVID-19 is going to do to this world. The new world is going to be socially distanced. It's going to be contactless and low touch. It's going to be a very remote functioning world, and it's a disruption that's going to cause us a lot of inconvenience. But with that inconvenience comes opportunity. And we are already seeing a lot of COVID-19 response innovations in the market, in workplace, in life, and everywhere. And it's really interesting to see that. And for a moment, I'm going to now move a little broad angle to try and discuss disruption, not just in the context of COVID-19, but overall. So if we move to the next slide, I'm going to try and look at what disruption really is and what are the types of disruption. And how can we understand it in a slightly broader context? What's to me interesting is a disruption, of course, is not a new phenomenon. It has been happening for a long, long time. What I share here is one of the examples that I like, but there are many more before this as well. But the transition of, or the innovation from a buggy to a Ford Model T is really iconic. It's something that changed the way we look at transport forever. But that's one kind of disruption. What other types of disruption can we really look at? It helps us to know the type of disruption we are up against, because it helps us to be better disruptors then. There are various types I've tried to discuss. Next slide, please. One is, of course, disruptive technology of film versus digital versus phone camera. And this is something we've all experienced. This is something where we've seen how photography, which used to be in the earlier days a thing to be done during big occasions, became almost an everyday thing. So everyday that we almost want to click what we eat for breakfast and share. So that kind of shift has happened because of technology. And it's really interesting. We can go next. The other interesting, so I've just discussed a few disruptive technologies. 3D printing. This, to my mind, is going to be one of the biggest impacts on product development and design. It is something that's going to completely reinvent the way we look at product innovation and product development. It accelerates your time to make prototypes. It changes completely the game for people. What's interesting is on Amazon, you can actually buy your own personal 3D printer. So it shows how quickly this disruption has happened, and something that we really should watch for. The next one is AI and deep learning. This is actually going to be creating a really seismic shift in the way we look at businesses, in the way we look at, the way we function, honestly. It's going to be a whole new universe, not just whole new world. And it's just about beginning to make that impact. We will see it happen in the next couple of years. The next one is to talk about business models. So there are many examples of technology. I have just taken 3 for paucity of time, but there are many more. But let's move to disruptive business models. What has happened to business models? There are new aggregation and fragmentation models. If you move to the next slide, you will see there are different kinds of business models that have emerged in the last few years. They've changed the rules of the game, and they have shifted the power centers in your value chain. And it's so important because it's just changed the whole rule and the relationship model for each of these that I talk about. E-commerce platform, be it digital payment, be it entertainment with Netflix, be it ride sharing with Uber. There are so many different ones, and it's really interesting to see how business models are creating a whole new world. Next, please. I think next is the Uber example. We can skip, I just spoke about it. Next one is blockchain. This to me is going to have a big impact in terms of the economic exchange that happens globally. And it's a very interesting kind of a business model, one which when you read about or when you hear sounds really difficult to get grips with, because it's almost like an alternate reality with a currency that's digital, with a ledger system which is very, very digital. It's very interesting, autonomous way of doing business. It'll be very interesting to watch how blockchain changes things for us. Next, please. Next is the Bitcoin image, so we can skip it. But basically the point was how Bitcoin is going to change the classic model of banking that we know about. It is going to cause big disruption. Mindset. Of course, if we have to develop it, we need to think innovation, but not just innovation. We need to think beyond innovation, because it's interesting when you look at it like this, that all disruption is innovation, but all innovation is not necessarily a disruption, because you can have innovations that give you business profits, that give you new segments, but they may not be disruptive. So it's important to keep that in mind and go beyond only an innovative mindset. The second one is to challenge assumptions, and challenge assumptions. There can never be a day as usual. There can be no holy cows, because once you get into that space of trying to say, okay, this is our expertise and this is how we put our process together, you lose the mindset of being disruptive. Every day is day one at Amazon in order to have the mindset of a startup. Looking forwards, not back, with limitless opportunities, not trivial repetition. We're ready to create the future. Otherwise, it becomes day 2. which is Stagnation, Irrelevance, Decline, and Death. This is by Jeff Bezos. And honestly, I wish all the very best to all the participants and hope that we stay in the day one spirit always and continue with our disruption strategies. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity.